Now that we've talked about thread and stabilizers and hooping up our projects, we are finally ready to stitch out a design on our Creative 1.5s. If you need any help on any of those areas, be sure to check the previous episodes where we go over all that material. So, first things first, you need your embroidery unit attached. You also want to make sure that you check the vicinity of the embroidery unit and make sure that there's nothing in the way, because your embroidery arm is going to move around when you embroider. So you don't want it to accidentally hit the wall or knock over your drink or whatever else you have on the table. You can also thread your machine with your thread of choice. I have a 40 weight rayon embroidery thread in the top and a 60 weight bobbin fill thread in the bottom. I've also hooped up some quilting weight cotton and some cutaway stabilizer in my 240 by 150 hoop. So all my parts and pieces are ready to go, and the first thing we need to do is load a design. When you first turn your machine on with the embroidery unit attached, it's going to go default into the Embroidery Stitch Out mode. So I'm going to turn my machine on. It will give you a message that tells you to disengage the IDT, remove the hoop, and attach the embroidery presser foot. So once you've done all those things, you can click OK, and the embroidery arm is going to calibrate. Once it's done calibrating, we can go ahead and attach our hoop. To do that, you want to make sure the presser foot is up. You want to make sure you're looking at the text side of your hoop, and I'm going to gently slide the hoop right under the foot. You can lift the presser foot even further if you need to with the presser foot lift. And I'm going to slide the hoop right into the embroidery arm. And you want to make sure that it snaps into place so that the machine knows that the hoop is attached. Your Creative 1.5 comes with 15 designs preloaded in the machine and 86 more on the included USB drive. There's also 2 embroidery fonts that are both on the machine and on the USB stick. If you put the USB stick in your computer, you can open a PDF that shows you all the designs so you can select them and see what they're going to look like. If I wanted to load one of the designs that's already in the machine, all you have to do is type in the number when you first turn the machine on and put the hoop on. So for instance, let's say I wanted to load design number 2. I'm going to push 2, and design number 2 will load. And there it is on the screen. If, by the way, your Creative 1.5 is showing a rectangle right here instead of the embroidery design, then you need to update your machine. It's super easy. You can just go to PFAFF.com and go to the Creative 1.5 page. If you scroll to the bottom, there's a little icon that says Update, and you can download the update, put it on your USB stick, and there's instructions for how to install it. It's really simple. So if yours has that rectangle, then that's what you need to do. Alrighty, so that's how we use our included designs, but what if I want to use a design on my USB stick? I'm going to take my USB stick and put it in the USB port on the side of the machine, and then I'm going to click my load button, which is this first heart right here. Then I'm going to use the keypad and scroll down to embroidery design files, and then I'm going to pick the range of numbers that my design falls into. So I'm going to use design 18, so I'm going to pick that first one. And then I'll scroll down to my design, click it, and it will load that design. Embroidery Stitch Out, which is the mode that it turns on in, is the mode that lets you control what the machine is going to do when it embroiders. But let's say you want to edit the design a little bit. To do that, we're going to go into Embroidery Edit mode. To get to Embroidery Edit mode, you're going to click the Embroidery Edit mode button, which is the butterfly inside the hoop. Once you click that, you'll see the menu change a little bit. So let's talk about what all of these different icons are. The first one is the Rotate button. This will let you rotate your design in 90-degree increments, and depending on the hoop size, it might allow you to rotate in 180-degree increments. For instance, my design is kind of rectangular, so if I were to rotate it 90 degrees, it wouldn't fit in the hoop anymore. So my machine knows that, and so it will allow me to rotate in 180-degree increments. So if I push the plus button, you'll see it rotates 180 degrees. If I push it again, it will rotate back to 0. So clicking these buttons lets you rotate your design. The second icon is the design height. So clicking this allows me to change the height of the design in 5% increments up to 20%. Again, depending on the hoop size, the machine will not let you make a design bigger than the hoop size. because then you would be embroidering on top of the hoop and bad things would happen. So as soon as you change out of default, there'll be a highlighted box around the number. So if there's a highlighted box, you know you've changed it and made it different than the default numbers. The icon below that is the design width. So this is how we can make our design narrower and wider. And again, the same thing, if there's a highlighted box appearing, that means that it's not a default setting. If you want to scale or change the size of your design proportionately, you want to make sure you adjust these the same. So if you do 2 clicks down on the height, then you also want to do 2 clicks down on the width, just to make sure everything stays proportional. So now that we have our design all set and ready to go the way that we want it, we're going to go back to Embroidery Stitch Out mode, because that's how we stitch out our design. So to do that, you're going to click the little button with the hoop. So we can still see our design, but up here at the top is my hoop selection. So depending on the design that you choose, you may have a couple different options of hoop sizes you can use. If you do, then when you click the plus and minus, those will show up. For mine, it will only fit in the 240 by 150 hoop, so that's what is selected for me. The second icon involves the stitch count. So the first number shows you the number of stitches left in the current color that your machine's embroidering, and the second number in parentheses shows the total number of stitches left. So when your machine is embroidering something that has multiple colors, it will break down the count for you by color. So then the third icon here is the thread color icon. So the first number shows you the current color that your machine is stitching out, and the second number in parentheses shows you the total number of colors in the design. If you push the Alt button right here, that will give you view 2 of the Embroidery Stitch Out menu. The first right here, the first icon is the orbit view, so this helps you place the design on your fabric. So it will cycle through the points of all 4 corners and the center when you push the plus and minus. So if I push plus, it's going to go to the top left corner of the design, and I can see where that's going to land on my fabric. So this is going to help you position your design on the fabric. The second icon is the based function. So when I click the plus to select it, you'll see that both the hoop moved and the butterfly is selected now. The based function is going to stitch a square of basting stitches around your embroidery design to help secure your fabric and your stabilizer so they don't move around while you embroider. So this is a good thing to kind of always do, but especially you can do it if your fabric is a little wiggly or squishy or wants to move around, or if you're doing hoopless embroidery, then you definitely want to use the based function. The third icon on this View 2 menu is monochrome. So if I select it, then if I have multiple thread colors in my design, the machine will just stitch through all of them without prompting you to change the color, and you can just do a single color then for the design instead of multiple colors. So I'm going to leave my based function on, and I'm ready to start embroidering. So let's do the stitch out. Since I selected the basting function, my machine is going to baste a rectangle around the embroidery area before it embroiders the design. So it's really great that we can use the foot pedal for this, because sometimes the reason we're basting is because our fabric's going to move around a little bit, and we want to make sure that when we baste, everything stays nice and flat. So by using the foot pedal, that lets you go at a comfortable speed to make sure you can manage your fabric and make it turn out nice and smooth. So I'm going to lower the presser foot, and then I'm going to use the foot pedal to stitch my basting. When you push the foot pedal, the machine's going to do a little more calibration, and then you can just start sewing. You just want to make sure everything stays nice and flat as you're basting. That's the most important thing. And then once it gets basted, you can kind of relax a little bit. So when I get back up to the top, the machine will stop automatically, and it's going to move to the beginning of my embroidery design. So I'm going to cut the tail of the basting thread just so that it doesn't get caught into a later part of the design. So now all I have to do is push the Start Stop button. I'm going to follow the prompts on the machine if it tells me to change the thread color or to cut any thread tails, but other than that, I'm just going to let the machine do its magic. So once your machine is done, it's going to tell you it's finished. So you can click OK. We're going to raise the presser foot and we're going to remove the hoop. So you want to make sure that you push the hoop release button on the embroidery arm. You can slide the hoop out and you can raise the presser foot if you need to. But here is our beautiful finished embroidery. Super awesome. So once you're finished, you can go ahead and go back and trim the little jump stitches, which are the little tails of thread where the machine moved places. So you can cut those off. You can also remove the basting stitches because we're done with them. And you'll have something that looks like this. So here's my trimmed and finished, totally done embroidery design. Yay, very exciting. So a few more things before we wrap it up. First of all, you can open your settings menu for a few other options. So I'm going to click the little tool icon right here. So this lets you do a few things. It lets you control your hoop position. So you'll see that by default, current position is selected. But if you wanted to go to park position, so this moves the embroidery arm to where it is when you turn the machine on, you can select that, but it's super, super important that you take the hoop off first. So you want to take the hoop off, then you can put it in park. Cut position will move the hoop forward and it makes it easier to trim the jump stitches if you wanted to do that with the hoop still on the machine. Center position will put the hoop right in the middle. Last thing to talk about in this menu is the thread tension. So a little troubleshooting tip, if you are seeing just a teensy bit of the bobbin thread on the top of the project, then one thing you can do is turn your tension down just a little bit and that should help take care of that. I hope you've enjoyed this Machine Embroidery 101 video series. If you need a refresher or more information about thread, stabilizers, hoops, hooping up your projects, or the parts of your machine, then be sure to check out our previous episodes. Also be sure to follow PFAFF on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can always visit pfaff.com for the latest in machines, accessories, and inspiration. I hope you enjoy embroidering on your brand new PFAFF Creative 1.5.